The end of the war, the end of World War One, was the fighting officially stopped when?
July
18.
28th. June 28th.
July 28th.
11.
Yes, the armistice. At the armistice, which means the ceasefire. And of course, that was November the 11th, 1918. But all wars have to have a peace treaty that officially ends them. So this is the peace treaty that officially ends World War One. It's the Treaty of Versailles. And it is the anniversary of the date of the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. So it's June 28th, 1919. Okay, so I have that there for
Why
you.
did they wait like 8 months to make the thing?
Well, it took time. It took time. When you think about it, since it was a world war, you're bringing representatives from all the countries that were involved are going to meet in Paris at the Palace of Versailles in what is known as the Hall of Mirrors. I don't think I have that for you here, but the Hall of Mirrors is literally a huge room where one side is all windows, letting in natural light, and the other side is all mirrors. And so you can imagine how light and bright it would be. And this is going to be the area where they meet to work out the deals for the peace treaty. Everybody is included except one country, Germany. They leave Germany out. Now, there's a real close connection between World War I and World War II, and really it's the Treaty of Versailles. Had Germany been treated better at Versailles, then they may not have listened to a madman like Adolf Hitler when it came time for World War II. I mean, one of the reasons why the people rallied around Hitler is he is going to try to help them to regain everything that they've lost at the Treaty of Versailles. And this is one of the reasons, again, why we study history. We learn from the mistakes that others have made so that we will not repeat them. And Germany was treated so badly, and of course, so many people wanted revenge on Germany, that it's just going to antagonize and make bitter the German people. So that 20 years later, when a madman like Hitler comes along, they're willing to follow him because he is going to give them back everything that they lost here. So that's what we're going to look at, is all the different things that's going to happen to Germany as a result of the Treaty of Versailles. And it really is bad. What they do to Germany is horrible.
They took their money. They had put a limit on how much of an army they could have. They took a bunch of their land. Is that all?
No,
That's not all.
but that is a big part of it. Okay, so when the ceasefire happened, and when was that?
Armistice.
Yeah, 11 o'clock, the 11th day, the 11th hour, the 11th month.
Oh, Miss Huffman, I will be here in geography.
Oh my.
You're so fat.
Okay. Now, whereas there's representatives from all the countries are there are 4 countries that are known as the Big Four. And I want you to know their leaders and the country that they represent. So this is the Big Four. The United Kingdom, or England, and that is David Lloyd George. Vittorio Orlando of Italy. Georges Clemenceau of France, and of course Woodrow Wilson from the United States.
Got it.
So the Big Four countries are
UK, Italy. Hold on, I'm trying not to look.
good.
France
United
and
States.
United
And France, yes. UK or England, Italy, France, and the United States. Clemenceau. Clemenceau. Clemenceau was from France, Wilson from the U.S., Orlando from Italy, and David Lloyd George from England, or the United Kingdom, rather.
Of course he has such a long name. He's from France.
Packages.
Now,
Scratches.
Wait. So it's Italy,
Italy
UK, France.
and the USA. Now, think about it for just a minute. Where was World War I fought?
Everywhere.
Europe.
Mostly in Europe.
Central.
Mostly in Europe, yes. Really, that was predominantly where it was. So that's going to involve the United Kingdom, Italy, and France more than the place of the United States, right? So really, the land is going to be damaged. The territory, the terrain,
They made
the
that-
buildings, all of it is going to be much more damaged in Europe than it was in the United States. There was no physical damage to our country. We lost men, of course, and material, but there was no physical damage to the country. Well, that's going to give them a different mindset about how they want revenge, really, because that's what it is, how they want revenge on Germany. And so Wilson is going to try to keep them from making so many demands on Germany, but he fails at that attempt. He does come up with something, we're going to look at it a little bit later on. He develops what is known as his 14 points. The 14 points, in it he comes up with what he calls the League of Nations, which is like the forerunner of what we have today, the United Nations. And the League of Nations, his idea was, let's bring countries together and have them talk about their problems, and maybe they can resolve their issues without going to war. Remember, the World War I was known as the Great War because it was so big, and it was also called the War to End All Wars because they hoped it would end all wars. What does the Bible say about war? What did Jesus say about war?
Something, but I'm assuming
Never
he's saying it
ends.
never
Yeah,
ends.
you will always have wars and rumors of wars. I mean, that's always going to be. So, I mean, people are sinful and people get involved in wars. Okay, the Hall of Mirrors. This gives you some idea of what it would have looked like. This huge room, but it's long and narrow. That's why they refer to it as a hall. But see, you've got natural light coming in on this side and mirrors on this side. And of course, it's going to be well lit. And you got to remember, this is a time when they don't have, I'm sure they had electricity, but it still wasn't much of electricity. And so this would have been very helpful for them in getting all these different people together. I mean, this is a whole bunch of people. I mean, I'm sure there's hundreds of people there from different countries, except what country? Germany. Okay, now this kind of spells it out for you.
There it is.
The first thing was they made them reduce their military down to only 100,000 men. And you think, well, that's a lot of men. That's still enough that somebody could go to war, could fight. And it is, but it's nothing like compared to what they had.
Wait, so why did this actually affect them? Because can't Germany just say no?
No, because they would get their hind end kicked.
Exactly. I mean, this were the conditions of the peace treaty. If Germany refused to agree to this, then the war probably would have started back up again. I mean, that was what they could have held over their heads. They had already defeated them, but they had not destroyed them, but they could have. So they reduced their military down, and then they created what they called a buffer zone or a demilitarized zone around Germany, and especially between Germany and France. There was a 30-mile wide zone that there was not supposed to be any military at all of Germany's in this demilitarized zone. Again, it was like a buffer zone to protect them from advancing again into France. They had to give up most of their merchant vessels. And not only that, but they had to make ships and give to the Allied countries. Give them away.
mustache man who was very, very, very.
And he actually fought in World War One.
Yeah, he got shot, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. But the thing of it is, if you can just imagine the people of Germany and how they're going to feel after all of these restrictions are put on them, after their livelihood is going to be taken away from them, a lot of their land, like Dylan said, is going to be taken away from them. They're just going to, they're not going to have much of a way in which they can ever move forward. And so they're very resentful, they hate everybody else, and again, that makes them willing to listen to people they probably shouldn't have listened to.
Well,
What is a merchant vessel?
It's
what-
something that like travels and sells stuff. and
Right,
comes
I mean,
back
it's,
and goes
yeah,
back.
if you've sold goods to another country, you load it on a vessel. Remember, there's no airplanes that are doing any flying, like across the Atlantic or anything at this time. So if you have sold goods to another country that's any distance at all away, you're gonna have to get it there by boat. And so, and I think the worst of it all was that they were made to build ships and give them away to allied, to their enemies, basically. Can you imagine the anger and the resentment that they would feel? You okay? Let me show you something. Come here. Come here. Let me show you something. Let me show you how this works.
He does it all the
Just
time.
lean up against that corner there. And now. Oh, yeah, you do it.
I got it. Here, take this.
Back scratch.
Hello? Anytime today. All right, you ready?
Did you paint your nails?
Okay, so the land that they lost, Germany's going to lose a lot of turf.
Yes. Your nails are pretty.
Thank you.
Is this more stuff that keeps happening?
Yes, this is all, we're not done with it yet. This is the Treaty of Versailles, 1919. Germany lost land. That's why I wanted you on that map to do the Rhine River Valley. A big portion of the Rhine River Valley is going to be taken away from them. And are you familiar when they say that there's a place that is your breadbasket for a country?
Oh, it makes like the most money, and it's like.
Well, it's where their agricultural products are made, especially that they would use like their grains and
Wait, this is the land they lost?
this is the land they lost. Their grains that they would use to make the bread that feeds them is your bread basket. It's your agricultural place. It's where all of your main foodstuffs are grown. And that was the Rhine River Valley for Germany. And so they're going to lose that. They're not going to have the ability to then be able to grow crops and things to feed their people. They're going to lose their Saar Coal Valley, which again, Germany's a lot like West Virginia. It even looks like West Virginia. I've been to Germany, and it looks like West Virginia. They have a lot of coal, and of course that was one of their main occupations. They have to give up the Saar Coal Valley. They have to give that all to the Allies. As a matter of fact, they make them mine the coal and give it to some of the Allies. They do the work, but they have to give it away. They lose colonies that they had in Asia and Africa. And they lose 25,000 square miles of territory just right in this area where 6 million people lived, and they're all German people. See, that's going to be key when it gets to World War II. A lot of the land that they lose has within that land German people. So when Hitler decides to retake some of this land, he's able to do it without opposition, because the people that are there are already German-speaking people. They are Germans. They want to go back home. So he's able to take part of Austria without any fight. He's able to take back the Rhineland and all of these areas because nobody wants to put up a fight because there was German people anyway.
What's it called where when a country takes over another country, they have to slowly inch their way into making a new government? What's that called?
I don't know. slowly make, you know.
Because they have to like, they can't just like immediately like jump in and say, this is what you're gonna do. There's obviously a vote for the people, they have to like inch their way in.
They have, okay. I don't know, I'd have to look that up, Dylan.
It starts with an I.
Invading.
Well,
I don't know, unless they would just gradually wear them down or make them more desirous to be a part of the invading
do you have a
country.
dictionary?
Yeah, but let's hang on to that thought for just a minute, okay? So, so you see this little area, this is Alsace-Lorraine, we talked,
Integration.
huh?
Integration.
Integration, okay, well, that makes sense, yeah, integration, where they have to integrate into part of their, or assimilate. Assimilate is also part of that. Okay, so anyway, this part we did on the map, Alsace-Lorraine, this little section is given back to France. It was taken from Germany and it's given back to France. So they're gonna lose a lot of turf, they're gonna lose a lot of their ways in which they make money, they're gonna lose a lot of their livelihood methods, and they're gonna have to also make things and give things back to the Allies. Now, I just wanted to show you this map. This was the map, the way it looked in 1914, before World War I. Austria-Hungary, Germany was much larger, France was smaller, all of these areas. And then 1919, and it's all gonna be all divided up, and that's part of the Treaty of Versailles as well, is that Germany is gonna be, made much smaller, Poland comes into being, and Austria-Hungary is divided into two countries and also broken up into other little countries.
Germany is hurting.
And so it's a big difference from 1914 to 19, am I going backwards? Okay, yeah, that just shows you, I tried to morph it in there to where it showed you the differences. Okay, another big thing that Germany had to do was they had to pay in war reparations $5 billion. And that was right off the bat. They had to give that immediately, and then they were supposed to give more money as time went along. And again, they gave their coal to the Allies. I told you that already. But $5 billion today is nothing to sneeze at. I mean, I could probably live off of that, maybe. That's a joke. But I mean, that was a lot of money back in 1919 too. That was much more than it is today. Probably the worst thing though was the war guilt clause. They had to sign a document that said the war was all their fault. And I do like this political cartoon, and it's supposed to show, I think that's supposed to be David Lloyd George from England, and he's escorting the peace treaty out of the committee meetings and what have you, and trying to figure it out. And the peace treaty looks like it's pretty beat up. I mean, it's pretty much in shambles. And so it is going to be devastating for Germany. And just think about it. Almost all of you have brothers and sisters. If you get in a fight with your brother or sister and they really start it, you didn't,
First half of my life.
but your mom or dad says, you've got to apologize, it's your fault, you're the older one. All the time, bless your heart. But can you imagine how Germany would feel? Who really started the war?
The black hand.
Well, when he killed Franz Ferdinand, but what country? Austria-Hungary, right, Kate? When he invaded Serbia, when they invaded Serbia. So Germany really didn't even start the war, but they did kind of go with the idea of the war, didn't they? What was the plan that said they would invade France first and then turn back into
Schlieffen plan.
the Schlieffen plan, right? Okay, so they did have a plan, but really Germany gets all the blame, and they even have to sign a document that says it's all our fault. And so the people of Germany are very resentful of the rest of the world, and I think you can understand why. They are waiting for revenge. That was just another map of it. You don't really have to go over that. Okay, so can you kind of understand, though, how the people of Germany, it's really only 20 years. Now, I know to you guys, 20 years sounds like a long time, because you haven't even lived 20 years yet.
I'm close.
You are not.
I'm the closest.
I'm 40 days.
You've got at least 4 years, don't you?
6 years
6 years too?
for me.
Yeah, 4 years.
4 years?
6 years for me.
5 years? Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine being that young. But really in a span of time, 20 years is not that long a period of time. So from World War I to World War II, you've got 20 years. 20 years of this mistreatment, and it's really not that much because Hitler starts, when Hitler takes power in 1933, he starts to retake some of the land and just slowly, gradually starts to undo all the things of the Treaty of Versailles.
Poland was first.
And there's a major event going on, and that's why the rest of the world kind of ignores what Hitler's doing. What's the major event that happens between World War I and World War II? The Great Depression. Yeah, and the whole world is broke. It's kind of like the whole world is involved in the pandemic, but they're all broke and they don't have jobs or money.